about it. So we're going to get on with the questions. I'll try and make it as brief as I always can do. Okay, so thank you to all those that do submit the questions. Thank you to Des, who submits many questions regularly. Do appreciate that. So yeah, let's get on with them, and then we'll go on to our specialist topic after that. So question number one, do I need to be fit to dance? How much warming up, cooling down, stretching should I do? At the beginning of the class, we kind of do our basic step, and that's moving yourselves forwards and backwards. We do start that off nice and slowly. So we're kind of, as we're doing that, stretching the muscles. It's not an official warm-up, of course, so we're not necessarily qualified to do that. But that is kind of a nice way to start the night off. I'd always suggest trying to do the beginners classes. You'll learn your basics much more, and it is an easier way to start off the class to start off the night doing many simpler moves. If you do come in and just do the intermediate class, you're straight into doing harder moves, that can be more of an issue. But yeah, how fit do you need to be to dance? The great thing about dancing is you can stop whenever you wish. You can dance as hard as you want. You can sit down, you can chat. You'll get fitter as you dance. So yeah, be as fit as you can, but at the same time, you know, it's available for all, which is what we love about it. Yeah. Next one, if my follower is locking their elbows, i.e. not enough extension, and thus making themselves heavy stroke treacle, nice description, to move, how do I cordially communicate that this is an undesirable dance trait? Very nicely put. So the principle behind that, I'll get off this one. Okay, so if your follow is, as they're stepping back, is keeping their arm completely locked out like that, okay, and therefore they're not allowing any extension as you step away, then they can be quite heavy to lead at that point there. Okay, so how do you get your dance partner to change that? Ideally, what you're looking for is you never want to lock out your arm, because then you've got a straight line from your elbow through to your wrist, and that isn't desirable either. So it's somewhere in between. So you start off, ladies generally are going to be in a right angle for your arm, but generally as you step away, you just extend the arm out, but not to the full locked out point, because then it is the shoulder. So you just want to basically just slowly extend it out. That's what creates a cushioning effect as you step back. So how do you tell your partner? I'd always say speak to the teacher. They're always in a particular position to give the correct advice. They should have much more knowledge than most people do have. If you don't feel suitable to tell your partner, then it's not like you're kind of saying to your teacher, no, can they do that? It's just a nice thing if you say to your teacher, is there any chance you could dance with this person, and just give them this tip because I've been struggling to. And then because all teachers have a teacher-student relationship, then people are much more able to take on that feedback. I've also seen a lot of people that are giving advice that aren't necessarily either qualified or giving the correct advice. So always be very careful when you're giving advice. If you've not been trained how to dance or anything like that, and sometimes you think you're doing it right, but actually you might be giving false advice. So yeah, I'd always pass it on to the teacher. That's a nice way to do it, and it makes everybody still enjoy the night. Hello everybody. Hello Father, it's nice for you to join me. Next one, any tips on spinning? We did spinning as a previous podcast a few times ago, so I'm not going to go over it in full detail. The main thing I would give you regarding getting up again, okay, that I would give you regarding doing spinning is just think that your arms are what give you the momentum. Your feet want to be as close together like a spinning top principle as you possibly can have. The minute you have your feet apart, I know you can't see my feet, but the minute you have your feet apart, the more unstable you would be. So we want to prep the arms around by throwing the arms around, change the position of your arms in relationship to your body. That's what gives you the momentum. If you're doing a man spin, whip the arm across. If you're doing a lady spin or a Sarok spin, whip your left arm across to meet your other hand. Okay, so use the arms for momentum. Use the legs for stability. So that's the tips on spinning. I like this question. It's can the windmill be brought back from premature retirement? So the windmill used to be a beginner move back in circa 2000 to 2010. It was removed from the syllabus because it was actually very difficult for beginners to lead it, and it wasn't a great move, if I'm honest, to teach for beginners. So can it be brought back from premature retirement? It could be taught as an intermediate move. All teachers are able to teach it. Whether they choose to teach it or not is entirely up to them. Hope that explains my thoughts on the windmill. Good. So last one on the questions is the other week we learned the ladies ronde from the first move. As a follower, how do I know not to continue the turn to face my partner? Basically, how do I know if my leader wants me to do a full turn or a ronde? Okay, now for those who don't know what a ronde is, I'm going to move the camera down a little bit so you can hopefully see somewhere towards my feet. Okay, So a ronde is that where you would step on your right foot normally, you can do it either way, and then you'd have your other leg out to the side and you'd draw a circle around on the floor. Okay, so that's a ronde as you're coming around in that position there. Now the move that we did the other day is from a high first or a slingshot, and as the ladies came round, they did a step forwards, but their arm was, or their wrist was twisted. So they'd end up starting off coming backwards, and then they'd step forwards on their right foot and then do a ronde. The question that's asked is, how do you know as you're coming round not to continue the turn and end up with your arm behind your back? In all honesty, it's about the subtlety of the lead. If the chap is overturning your wrist at that point there, then you are likely to overturn. If he underturns your wrist, then you're likely just to walk straight forward. So it's a very subtle lead. Moves like that are quite difficult to get the correct amount of tension on. But as a lady, you'll kind of recognize what move the man is going to do. You'll know what his stock repertoire is. We'll come on to moves in a moment, and then you can actually work out what the chap's trying to get you to do. But yeah, sometimes you will overturn as a lady. You might have too much momentum. It's quite a difficult move to get right. But yeah, do practice it. That's the plan, and try and figure it out. Really, it's the best thing to do. But it's a very subtle lead. I always say the subtlest leads are the hardest ones to get right from the lead and the follow perspective. Right, so we're going to move on to this week's or this month's specialist topic. I'm always happy, by the way, if anybody does want to ask for any particular topics. Last month we did competition moves. Well done to everybody who did Welsh Champs. Thought we did amazingly. It was a fantastic day. Well done to Lindsay and Andy for organising the day. There's an enormous amount of work that goes into competition. So well done for everybody that competed. Thought we did fabulous. We had the pleasure of watching you all day, which was all good. So how to remember moves. So the first thing about remembering moves is it doesn't really matter what moves you're doing. It's the main thing I would say. What I'd love you to be doing is actually dancing with the music and allowing the music to tell you what to do. This weekend's workshop, no doubt, will mention that part as well. Okay, sorry, excuse me. So how to remember moves. But I'm going to go from basic intermediate class, how to remember moves. Okay, so the first thing to think about is that in an intermediate class, you've got two sections of the class. You've got the first section, which is the first two moves, which is basic moves. The third one is always something more challenging, okay? So the first two moves, if you are relatively new to intermediate classes, focus on those first two moves, okay? If you try and remember too much, you won't remember it all. So try and remember a small amount each time. If you think about if you go to a class 50 weeks of the year, let's say you were incredibly dedicated, please do, okay? And you learn two moves on each of those occasions and you remembered them, you would have 100 moves regularly in your stock repertoire if you just remember those first two moves, okay? That is an amazing way to do it, okay? The second part is if you are more experienced, then just try and remember the third move. That's going to be the more challenging move for you, okay? And again, if you had that 50-week analogy, by the end of that, you would have 50 challenging moves you would have some chance of remembering, okay? So that's the first thing. So try and think about smaller amounts to remember, okay? So hello everybody, it's rejoining. Apologies, I have no idea what's going on with Facebook today, but we'll try and work it out as we go on. Hopefully it won't kick me out again. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second part is practice the moves that you learned that night on the night. I see it very, very regularly. We finish the routine, we say, let's go once through the routine, and then you're into freestyle. People do those three moves. They do them very, very well, or as well as they can do at that point there. And then they go back into their stock 30 moves and they don't practice those moves at all again. Somebody says to them later on the following day, for instance, what did you learn last night? And they say, I've absolutely no idea because I can't remember it. Okay, so practice the moves that you learn on the night as quickly as you can after the class, okay? The next part, though, is from the ladies, okay? So ladies, it's your responsibility as well to help the men, okay? Yes, it's the man's job to remember the moves. Ladies, it's your job to try and help the men remember the moves. We can't remember everything, okay? So ladies, ask the men during a normal class night to go through that night's routine, okay? Ask as many of the men as you possibly can, and the men will probably look at you to start with and go, I have no idea what they are. And then between you, you might have some idea of how to try and get around that and try and remember what those moves are. But the quicker after the class you try and remember those moves, the more chance you've got of remembering them, okay? If in doubt, ask the teacher, okay? I have lots of people asking the taxi dancers that are on duty that night, can you go through the intermediate class with me? If you remember, the taxi dancers are actually running the beginners practice sessions, so they don't take part in the intermediate class. They've no idea what the moves are. So yeah, don't ask taxi dancers, they don't know. If they're not on duty, of course they will know when they're there. But yeah, so there's that part. All the teachers are quite happy for you to film the routines at the end. I know some people that have got hundreds of routines that I've done over the years that they have filmed, they've catalogued them, they've listed them into different sections and stuff. So yeah, film the routine, and then you're more than happy to, as long as you don't share them on social media. That's what we always ask. So they're for your own personal use as a tool to remind yourselves of what to do. Okay, we always have what we call the paparazzi at the end of the class. Second track into freestyle is how I do it. I know other teachers do it slightly differently, but more than happy for you to film any of the routines as long as you do them for your own personal use. Okay, and then that kind of leads on to the next part, and that is how to remember them the following week. Well, there's no harm in looking at your phone if you have filmed them on your phone and looking at some of those routines and then practicing those routines the following week. That always does work. I know when myself and Zoe do our competitions, our open competitions and stuff, we write down what all of our moves are. So I have a big list of different sections of types of moves, and I can then just go, before I'm going to dance with Zoe, there's some moves that we do in particular that I don't do with anybody else, and I look at those and I go, right, I'll do that move, and that move, and I try and work out how to do it. Last night we had a dance at Bath. It was a very good night. Hope it came along. And generally we hadn't danced together for a little bit due to a variety of circumstances, and we couldn't remember hardly anything at all. So it happens to all of us. We can't remember stuff. I went and looked at my phone, and then I was like, oh yes, there's that, and that one. And then I was able to dance those moves, okay? That then leads me on to the next bit, and that is, if you are stuck in a rut and you feel like you're doing the same few moves all over again, okay, then do what I call a signal move. Now, we don't have any signals in Sorok anymore. Even the neck break is just to avoid the hand going up onto the lady's chest, okay? But signal moves, for instance, and again, I'll just demo these for a second, okay? So, for instance, if we did a double-handed yo-yo, as we step back, we place the hand across our stomach like so, okay? If we're going to do a pretzel as you step back, you place the arm there. If you wanted to do a neck break, you can raise the arm up and do that particular move there. So it's kind of like doing a signal type move. You're going to move your arm across your body to say, I'm now going to do this particular move, okay? All it is actually, in truth, is please take my hand at the next favorable opportunity. But it kind of gets you into a mode of doing a different type of move. It will lead you into doing other types of moves if you start off that process, okay? Which then moves on to the next part, okay? So the next part is beginnings and ends of moves, okay? So again, I'll get up and demonstrate this in a moment, but we have lots of moves that start off exactly the same way and lots of moves that end the same way, okay? You can vary that up. So I'll get it up one more time. So for instance, if we did a high first, as we twisted out our partner to this particular side here, there are almost hundreds of different things you can do. You could do a normal high first turnout, for instance, with a return at the end. You could do a slingshot as you came round. There's two variations. You could do, the ladies do a slow walk forwards, for instance, okay? You could go into a scroll where you turn the ladies round, pivot round, step back, etc., etc. You could do a lean. You could throw the hand under, doing a lean. They're all starting off in this same position where we've got the ladies on our right hand side. Okay, so that's one particular way to do it. Again, if I go back to a classic move of Sorok, the catapult. So as I led my partner behind me, again from this particular position here, we could turn our partner out. We could spin our partner around. We could do lower the hand down and go into a Nelson, which would then take us into lots of different things again. So think about the starts of moves. That will then lead you on to different options that you have. Doing ends of moves, though, also does help. So one of the moves we taught in the Improvers class this week, which is a class in between the two levels of beginner and intermediate, was a figure of eight. So a figure of eight, you turn the ladies one way, you turn yourself the other way, turn the ladies back and step back, then return and then step back, okay? But it's effectively from a return. So any move that would have a return at the beginning of it, or at the end of it, I should say, you then just put on a figure of eight. Okay, so it's just then building up any move that would then make that a bit longer. Okay, so think of ends of moves, how you could increase the end of a move. At the beginning of a move, think of your starting position. Okay, so there is that part. Some stuff that I have from ladies quite often, and I get this quite regularly, is we get to the sort of the last 5-10 seconds of the track, and then a lady says to me, is there any chance we could practice this particular move here? And I'm like, A, I have no idea what move you're talking about, and then we spend another minute or two trying to work it out. And B, it's right at the end of the track. So sometimes it can be quite difficult. So ladies, if you want to do a particular move, okay, with a particular man, and you know it's one of his stock 30 moves, let's be kind and say he's got 30 stock moves, okay, ask him at the beginning of the track. First of all, the man will feel, it's great, she likes one of the moves that I do, and also it gets the man to try and do in that move as well. But ask at the beginning of the track, and then that will be great for the man to do that, and it gets you the practice. You might get to the end of the track and then think, oh, he didn't do that move. I now have to wait till next week until I dance with him again, and he might do that move then. But if you ask him at the beginning, then that's fabulous. But what if it goes wrong? Who cares, first of all, if it goes wrong? It's what we always call a variation. But the second part is that if it doesn't quite go right, ladies, please feel free to ask the man again, could we do that again? And the man will go, yes, it was probably my fault, or it could have been the lady's fault, who knows? Okay, but repeat doing a move. If you don't get it right first time, just practice it again and again until you're doing that move quite correctly, okay? And the last thing I'd say about that is don't worry too much about moves. I always go back to this. One of the best dances that I ever had was back in Canberra, circa 2000 and something. I've been around quite a while. And one of the best dances I had, I remember it was about 3 o'clock in the morning in the downstairs room. It was very slow music. And I remember I danced 4 moves throughout the whole 3.5 minutes. It was the same 4 moves, but we were connected with myself and my partner, and it just felt really great. And my partner came off at the end of the dance and she said she enjoyed it. She might be kind, I don't know. But it was a great dance, and it was only 4 moves that I did. You don't have to get through lots and lots of different moves. I did a trial once on a beginner's day. I managed to get approximately in 3 minutes 65 different moves that I particularly did on that occasion. But you don't require that. The ladies would much rather you do less moves better than more moves worse. Okay, so always think about those things. So in a recap, enjoy your night. That's the main thing you're there for. Yes, try and do some moves. Yes, try and keep them varied. If you get stuck, come and see the teacher, but try and think about all these different variations. And the main thing is just practice what you learned that night. That will then increase your whole repertoire. Right, well, Facebook has let me stay on for the last 10 minutes, which is quite good. I will re-edit these. These are all going to be available via the podcast on iTunes. There'll be an audio podcast on that. They'll also be available on my YouTube channel, which is Richard Beauvoisin. Just type in my name and then you can subscribe, and then you automatically get notifications about when the new videos come on. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will see you again very soon. Thank you very much.